What's the state of your website? If you're looking for a new digital experience platform, or DXP, to run your digital experiences, I have the book for you. The Agile Brand Guide to Digital Experience Platforms is part of my best-selling series of MarTech books. In this book, I explore and demystify DXPs and look at the roles a digital experience platform should play, the different types on the market, as well as how to initially evaluate platforms, then how to best implement a DXP once you've selected it. The book also features a foreword from Rupali Jain, Chief Product Officer at leading DXP provider Optimizely, as well as several other thought leaders in the industry. Learn more and get a copy in print or digital now by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Hi, this is Greg Kihlstrom. Welcome to the Agile World podcast, where we discuss customer experience, employee experience, and transformation in an agile age. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to TEKsystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at theagile.world and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, The Center of Experience, a blueprint for creating an experience-led organization, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile World podcast. I'm excited to introduce part 3 of a special 3-part series about content and CX, brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. Today, we're going to talk about the real-world application of content strategy in today's enterprise, where personalization at scale is critical. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome back to the show Burke Beekler and Steve Householder from TEKsystems' Digital Experience team. First, why don't you both tell me what you do at TEKsystems?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So I lead TEKsystems Global Services, the digital practice and delivery worldwide.
Great.
I have been with Tech now for over 20 years, and I look after the digital and creative division, mostly as it relates to talent services at TEKsystems. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Burke and Steve. Thanks for joining us again on the show. Let's get started by discussing some real-world examples of companies that are executing content strategy well. Do any companies or industries come to mind that are best in class when it comes to content and customer experience?
Yeah, so a thought there, Greg, this is a fun space to look at these days because there's a lot of brands and organizations that are really advancing their capabilities in the space. A couple that come to mind, I know Steve probably has a couple as well that I interact with is Nordstrom Trunk Club, which is a terrific way as you're getting clothing to align personalization and desires of what you typically buy when you go to the store, and kind of aligning that to an online experience as well. I thought they've done a very good job in that space. Another one in a similar industry is Filson, which is American Heritage outerwear, clothing, and bags that do a really nice job as you interact with the website, consume the content, and really understand how it's personalized for you. Both those, in my mind, do a really good job.
Yeah, I think those are phenomenal examples, Burke. When I think of best in class, I think, honestly, the poster child for content marketing for me is Red Bull. Yeah. And, just the way they showcase amazing athletes in extreme sports, just phenomenal. And the element I like that they do the most is they kind of went against the grain. They didn't necessarily segment audience demographics. We're gonna focus on a youth between the ages of 18 and 25. What they did is they answered questions about their audience. How would a BMXer feel about a piece of content? How would a surfer feel about a piece of their content? And they matched the passion levels of their audiences to the content that they were serving up to them through multiple channels. And then what happened? Well, when there's a choice, they chose Red Bull. Hugely effective. That brand for me, when it comes to content, it sets the bar pretty high.
Great. So now let's talk a little bit about ways that organizations plan and execute great content strategies. What do companies need to consider in terms of planning when it comes to content strategy?
Yeah, so we covered this a little bit in episode number one, and I think it's a great question to get to, Greg, because when you think about content strategy, particularly the planning around that, there are a lot of individual steps that are going to take place, no matter what your objectives are, right? If you're talking about a holiday strategy, if you're talking about a particular campaign, there's going to be a lot of steps rolled into that. I always find it effective to help customers understand that it's always about, number one, identifying your business goals, right? What is it that you want to achieve? Making sure you do the correct inventory and identification of the content types that work best for your organization. Don't churn out essays or don't churn out blogs on your site if nobody's reading them. Become a true resource for your potential customers, right? And serve them as effectively as possible. We've worked with a lot of different organizations over the years. One of our clients, which is a leading hospitality brand, is a great example of taking that business first approach to their digital experience and content experience. By focusing on the KPIs that matter most to them. One example that they were really leveraging in on was revenue available per room. And, they can look at the growth on particular brands or traffic for direct bookings to provide data for measuring progress on that particular KPI, again, which is serving their business directly. And organizations that really operate with that central definition in their approach have a significant competitive advantage over other organizations that don't.
What are some common themes across companies that do content and personalization and CX well?
So I'll name a few off the top of my head. I mean, number one, it kind of alluded to this previously, is measurement, right? So if you're using a content management system to manage your website, your presence online, you got to ask, right, what's the goal? Is it sales? Is it support? Is it brand, recruitment, commerce? It's striking to us how many marketers have difficulty answering just that basic question, first of all. If the websites or content strategy kind of primary goal is unclear, it becomes extremely challenging to measure its success, right? The metrics in the business become misaligned. And, the response we sometimes see is that if it's everything to everybody, then oftentimes it's actually nothing to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Bert. So just my thought on this, and we hit on it maybe on the last podcast a little bit more, but certainly organizations that really leverage data, and it's not a surprise to the people that are listening, but the democratization of that data, the ability for the organization culturally to want to share that data, the touch points along the customer journey and stitching them together and making sure that, everybody's aligned and that we are nailing that is key. Of course, urgency and empathy around, getting initiatives lifted off the ground and to the degree that we understand our target audience is absolutely huge. Teams of people that are empowered and dedicated to solving some of these opportunities and challenges that go along with CX. And then certainly technology is what enables it, right? The right technology choices, optimized, integrated, and working to their fullest potential, absolutely critical. But on top of all that, Greg, and this is the biggest piece from my perspective, is if the culture of the organization is obsessed with the customer across the organization and how personalization and CX take shape. And when I say obsessed, it's just woven in the fabric of the culture. Where is the customer on the org chart? Well, they aren't on there, right?
Yeah.
But they need to be.
Yeah.
They need to be the most important thing on there because that's what's keeping everybody, engaged and alive inside the organization. So, that kind of just culture really just kind of encompasses everything else that we've been talking about.
I mean, would you say, and totally agree with what you just said, I mean, would you say that it's that customer empathy that really helps create good content? Is that kind of what you're saying?
1,000%.
Yeah.
I think we have a saying around here at Tech. It's called WIFM. What's in it for me? right?
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of use to get people to do things. What I think every organization needs to start a meeting with is the WIFTICA. What's in it for the customer?
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
What's in it for the customer if we do this, if we do that? What's in it if we don't? Right? So just starting from there and then letting the strategies evolve, the decisions evolve, the urgency and the empathy, of course, that we talked about evolve and take shape, and then of course measuring all of it.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, as you continue to hone in on the empathy piece, you really use that information to make the content and that outreach feel more native and personalized, right? It helps. Yeah. It's a virtuous circle that happens. And then, the other kind of common theme we see is around simplicity, right? We also want to make sure, and a lot of customers have already done this, but many have not, is just ease of use. Are the service and information channels that you guys are using optimized for even mobile, right? Mm-hmm. Making sure that that's always in place as a given. And if it's not, it's got to get in place ASAP.
Yeah. What's the role of creative studios in helping organizations deliver on great content strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Greg, we see creative studios as a concept of being very critical to digital capability that helps organizations insource work and take more control over their, in many cases, kind of work being done today with high-cost marketing agencies. So when we talk about a creative studio, what do we mean? What we're saying is that it's a dedicated creative team that can be embedded on site with your existing team or off-site working remotely. And we see a lot of customers struggle with needing to offload the quote-unquote busy work, right? The time-consuming precision tasks like design production, content production, and doing that at scale so that they can focus on the more impactful business and strategic decisions they need to be doing as an organization. And in addition, there are other important tasks that need to be done, like hiring, training, mentorship that can be very time intensive. But when you have an organization like TEKsystems Digital that can help do that with quality and scale, it really helps our customers be the best that they can be from a business perspective, and then augmenting that in-house talent.
Great. Well, finally, let's talk about some lessons learned for companies that might be struggling with their content strategy. Are there any pitfalls or learning opportunities for companies as they navigate their CX journey?
Yeah, so, when we see customers that really do this well, just like with anything related to digital or just development overall, what we always strive for and help educate customers on is test, learn, and improve, right? So as you navigate customer experience, as you navigate digital, as you navigate content, once you've established that baseline set of measurements for success, like we've talked about previously, what I like to say is the real fun begins. Testing and personalization offer marketing leaders and staff the opportunity to analyze the customer behavior, to identify patterns, create differentiated experiences within the channel. And by testing the performance of those messages and different types of engagement against your KPIs, the business is able to always continually refine and optimize performance. And that's a critical success factor because you're not going to get it right out of the gate. But if you test, learn, and improve always, you're gonna have good success.
Yeah, I agree so much. If I'm listening to this and I'm asking myself one question, do you have a strategy and a roadmap that you just love? That delivers the quantifiable results and measurements that you're looking for as it relates to CX, content, and really all of it. And when I say measured, if you're still measuring, old school things like Net Promoter Score or customer satisfaction results, that's not going to be good enough. Moving forward, the demands of the people that are in control of the budgets, the CEO, the CMO, the CFO, certainly, they're going to want to see tangible ROIs. Man, measuring personalization, measuring the value of content, It's tricky for some organizations. Some organizations have really nailed it, right? TEKsystems Digital can help you, get a little bit better at understanding how to identify those tangible results and then showcase them, which can cause budgets to swell, initiatives to get funded, and progress to be made towards that strategic initiative. So, those would be some of the highlights that I would say around pitfalls and challenges that I hear and see organizations making on a daily basis.
Great, thanks. Well, Burke and Steve, thanks so much for joining the show. For those listening, what is the best way to keep up with what you and TEKsystems Digital are doing in the area of content and content strategy?
Great, Greg. Well, yeah, as in previous episodes, please go to the TEKsystems.com digital website and look at our Version Next Now campaign series, and all this content will be contained therein.
Great. If you'd like to hear more from Burke and Steve, go back and check out parts 1 and 2 of this podcast series about content and CX. Again, I'd like to thank Burke Beekler and Steve Householder from TEKsystems Digital for joining the show. You can learn more about content strategy and TEKsystems at TEKsystems.com. Thanks for listening to The Agile World with Greg Kihlstrom. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to the Agile World podcast, brought to you by TEKsystems. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. You can learn more and get a copy of my latest book, The Center of Experience, from my website at theagile.world or on Amazon or other retailers. Until next week, stay agile.